How rich is John Fetterman? Politicians around the world have worked their way up in the social matrix to become famous and rich. Sometimes, despite the odds, these figures end up in the limelight, making all of us question how they got there in the first place. In today's video, we'll be looking at one such personality, John Fetterman, the senator-elect of Pennsylvania and a well-known politician. John Fetterman was born in 1969 in Pennsylvania to teenage parents, Karl and Susan Fetterman, who were both 19 at the time and just starting out their own careers. The Fetterman family moved into an affluent suburb of York, where John Fetterman spent most of his childhood, as opposed to the more common picture that was painted in campaigns for the Senate election of 2022. John Fetterman had a rather privileged upbringing thanks to his father, who founded and became partner at an insurance firm. Karl Fetterman was a founder of Kling Brothers Insurance LLC, which specialized in commercial insurance, personal insurance, employee benefits, and alternative risk financing. John Fetterman has previously described his childhood as privileged and said that he sleepwalked through his young adult years, being a football player with the hope of taking over his father's business in the future. Following in his father's footsteps, Fetterman studied finance at Albright College and completed his MBA at the University of Connecticut, and later on his Master's of Public Policy degree at Harvard University. In the 2 subsequent years following his graduation from the University of Connecticut, Fetterman worked in Pittsburgh as a risk management underwriter for Chubb. One of the most formative incidents of John Fetterman's life is the death of his best friend, who died in a car crash while Fetterman was studying at the University of Connecticut. According to Fetterman, his best friend's death had an immense effect on both his personal and professional life. After his friend's death, Fetterman joined Big Brothers Big Sisters of America, which is an organization that's set to provide help and money for those in need, whose mission is to create and support one-to-one mentoring. John got onto the program, mentoring a small 8-year-old boy who had lost his father to AIDS and promised the boy's mother, who was also suffering from the disease, that he'd look after her son and make sure he graduated college. After 15 years, John was able to fulfill his promise. Subsequently, John Fetterman joined AmeriCorps and helped to establish and arrange the first computer labs in the neighborhood and took classes for young parents in Pittsburgh's Hill District. John Fetterman then went on to serve Braddock, which was one of the most indigent communities in the Commonwealth. He started out with a GED program for the poorest and challenged communities in Braddock, before running for mayor and getting appointed to the position of mayor in 2005. He served as a mayor for Braddock for 13 years until he was 49. According to reports, his 13 years as mayor saw improvements in the community with new job opportunities, youth programs, and other projects to develop the region being actively employed. During his tenure as mayor, John also decided to run for the U.S. Senate in 2016, which he lost, but with ramped-up recognition and confounding everyone's expectations. He managed to secure 20% of the votes, and as a relatively lesser-known candidate in a 4-way race for the Senate, it's quite impressive. After his role as mayor until 2019, Fetterman was voted in as the lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania in 2018. He was known for his support for legalizing marijuana, which he claims to have decided upon recommendations he received from his listening tour around all the 67 counties in his region. During his time as lieutenant governor, Fetterman and his wife Giselle, married 2008, had chosen not to live in the lieutenant governor's mansion and instead opted for a residence in Braddock. The pool in the official residence has been open to children who didn't have access to one. From this quick pan of Fetterman's life, it's evident that most of his life has been spent on ventures that had little to no return in terms of a financial perspective. Of course, most of them were for the welfare of the community and did end up playing a role in getting the right kind of attention to support his political run. But how is it possible for Fetterman to have gotten so much recognition without finances and assets being a factor? Could he have other resources that the public is blind towards? One of the recurring themes in the pro-Fetterman campaigning ads for the 2022 Senate election was his image of a Pennsylvania everyman who grew up in a rugged city outside of Pittsburgh. Even in one of his TV ads, the phrase "blue-collar tough guy" flashes across a grim-faced image of him posing before smokestacks. This persona has long disturbed the Republicans, who say that it obscures his roots of a comfortable childhood in a suburban family that provided financial security way into his adulthood. Yes, you heard that right. According to reports online, and even to Fetterman's own open acknowledgement, it's known that for a big chunk of his lifetime, John Fetterman's main source of income was from his parents. In 2015 alone, public records show that Fetterman's parents had given him and his family $54,000. That was during the time that he served as mayor of Braddock, which then was his only form of paid work, that paid only $150 a month. Records online put his net worth at around $800,000, with a large portion of it attributed to the financial support he's receiving from his parents, in addition to the annual salary of $217,610 from his role as the lieutenant governor since 2019. Fetterman's opponent for the 2022 election, TV star Mehmet Oz, also criticized the manipulated blue-collar image that's been propagated throughout the election season. The star, famously known as Dr. Oz, said, and we quote, "Many folks think it's because of the way he dresses, with his hoodies and his shorts, that he's been working his whole life. It's quite the opposite." Despite his ads portraying him in that light, Fetterman addresses the issue and, in his own words, admit that he's been brought up in a cushy environment in York County. He was able to obtain higher education up until his master's without any student loan. In Fetterman's possession is also an industrial-sized loft that he purchased from his sister for just $1 in 2013, which his sister paid $70,000 for in 2007. Reports online also suggest that his family's total assets top $700,000. Fetterman has always addressed the fact that his parents' support was crucial for his comfortable life, and that it facilitated him to work for people who were less fortunate. He even declared the numbers behind his parents' financial aid during his run for the U.S. Senate in 2016, even when he wasn't asked to. Even though Karl Fetterman, John's father, didn't start out wealthy, their insurance business eventually proved successful and served as the key to a debt-free life for Fetterman. In the only publicly disclosed aid that John received, it's reported that Fetterman and his wife received untaxed gifts of $13,500 from each of his parents on one occasion. A few days prior to the primary elections, back in May 2022, Fetterman suffered a sudden stroke that took a hit to his ability to decipher spoken information and his ability to speak fluently. This was a key point in the general elections of 2022. However, 4 days after the stroke, Fetterman won the primary elections effortlessly, putting him against Dr. Oz in a race for the senator of Pennsylvania. This incident was a point of argument to the Republicans, who constantly raised the question of whether Fetterman is fit enough for the role of senator. Despite his circumstances, John Fetterman won the Democratic nomination against Republican Mehmet Oz. Fetterman became the first Democrat to win the seat since 1962. He was also considered the first candidate of the election to flip a national Senate seat from red to blue. Fetterman not only captured the attention of the people of Pennsylvania, but also that of his political opponents, marking himself as a successful politician with an unconventional lifestyle. Fetterman, during his years as mayor, is said to have developed the counties he served in many ways. His family also funded the implementation of a nonprofit organization called Braddock Redux, which focused on civic projects and charity. After the initial years, most of the funding for this organization had come from outside the Fetterman family. Today, having won a rather crucial and competitive Senate seat, the Senator-elect John Fetterman speaks of bringing about multiple changes in the economy, crime, and health conditions of Pennsylvania. Considering his background in social service, his health condition, and his upbringing, would you think that the people's choice of Fetterman as Pennsylvania senator is a wise choice? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below.